Welcome back to the Aviation RC Noob Podcast. You found us. My name is Joe.
And I'm Matt.
We're here to be with you along your journey and to share our experiences in RC aviation. If you have any questions, thoughts, or want to share a flight story, hit us up at aviationrcnoob@gmail.com. Now, buckle in. Let's take off. And we're back. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 38. Matt, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about build season. It's official. Time has dipped back in America, and now we have no light when it comes to the evening.
Okay, so we weren't really joking last episode when we said we were going to do something with the time shift.
Nope. No. I thought about it. I was like, well, we could do. No, you know what? I think it's not a bad plan for our listeners to kind of shift their thinking to, at the beginning of build season, kind of figure out what you want to build and kind of get it ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even down here in South Carolina, as close as we are to the equator, like 5:30, 6 o'clock, sunlight's pretty much gone. Like, there's no time after I get off work to go flying, even if I had stuff to go flying with right now.
Honestly, your best bet is to get up an hour early and go in the early light, or go at lunch. Bring something with you to lunch. No, I didn't say I was going to do it. I'm just saying if you wanted to fly.
Yeah, that's still pretty cold that time of morning.
To go, I didn't say it was going to be warm. I just said you'd actually have light. That's the only difference.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, that's going to be gone pretty soon. Probably by mid-month next month, it'll be gone too.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember carrying the fogey around in the back of the car for a while and getting out on some lunch breaks, or if I happen to be coming back into town a little early.
Oh yeah.
Be able to get out there for a few minutes.
That's right.
Okay.
That way you're not forced to just be relegated to the weekends. You get to have a little bit of fun in between.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's also squirrel season, I heard. Build season, squirrel season. Build season, squirrel season.
No, I've gone squirrel hunting, but I'm assuming that you're talking about a different kind of squirrel season.
Yeah, like when you're in the middle of some of those projects you have on your shelf and go, ooh, what's that over there? I want to try that.
Okay, I got you.
Ooh, what's over there? Ooh, I think I'm going to fix up my bench. Ooh, something cool over here. Hold on, I'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
Whether that be repairing stuff that you forgot that you even had as you try to clean. A lot of people use this time to kind of reset everything. So kind of getting into your shop and clearing everything off. So anyway, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, I think.
Lord knows my garage needs to be cleaned out. There's going to be a lot of stuff that kind of gets relegated. It's like, you know what? I hadn't needed this in the last 2 years. Time to go.
Yeah. Is that, well, we'll talk about that then, because I need help. All the help I can get.
I'm not much help on that. So,
as far as setting guidelines, I'll share a story that cracked me up. I wish I knew more details, but anyway.
I'll share a story now. I've just kind of got the man cave cleaned back up a little bit, and a while back, I threw away a whole tote, and when I mean a tote, I mean like. One of those clear storage boxes with like the click-on,
why would you
clasp-on lid?
Look, you get a trash bag, and you dump all the stuff in it out. You just reuse the tote. The tote's good.
Well, I did, but that big tote's worth of old computer wires. Because I've played around in tech for years, so old PC power cables, monitor power cables, which are the same thing. VGA cables, DVI cables, I've thrown away. USB cables, IDE and KDE interface cables, just old motherboards, just tons of stuff. Wires and cables, I was like, I might eventually, have a need for this. I don't want to need a cable for something and have thrown it away, but at some point, they've all been sitting in that box for like 6 years, just taking up space. It's got to go.
Yeah.
It's got to go.
Yeah. I get it.
So, I don't know. When it comes to cleaning and organizing the garage area is a little more like, these are my tools, these are my, specialty items that, like, they need to be stored somewhere. Because if I need them, then they're not a little $5 cable. They're a little more expensive to go and replace. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always kind of is that going to be a cable I just can't find anymore? But yeah, ultimately, probably worth tossing.
yeah. Well, anyway, so we can get talking about what we're going to be doing over the winter in a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about our build and fly, which I don't think either of us got out to fly in the last 2 weeks, have we?
I got out and attempted to fly.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Last time we talked about the Warbird event that didn't happen.
Right. Yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah. So I ended up building the Prandtl Arrow. So that was kind of what I was working on over the last couple whatever. So basically the next step, I'll call it, in the overall Prandtl project was, the first one was build a replica, which I did and crashed, and I haven't gone back to rebuild it. But I was inspired when we talked to Red to build the plank version of it, which I did, and it flew well. So I made, I'll call it the flight test version of it, where I'm not like, it's skinning the inside. It's not like a master series. It's, score a couple lines, and that will assist you in creating that, either the Clark Y wing foil that's in the center or the symmetrical foil at the end, right? That with a bunch of ironing and, Bob's your uncle, as they say in Australia. So I ended up creating plans for that style. And, I built that, and I was working on the motor system, and I think I got distracted, partly because I didn't have something that I liked. And I wasn't getting set up right. So I was like, hold on. So I still have a build video that I've got mostly edited, and all I'm looking for is that last segment where I record how to put on the electronics. But if I don't have a motor system that I like that I'm putting on it, then I really can't finish that. So anyway, so I was like, okay, I went back and kind of posted that information, and then I realized I have a poll at the beginning of that build log. We could put a link to the build log again if anybody really wants it, if you think it's worth doing, Joe. And at the beginning of it, I have a poll, like, where would you like to see the Prandtl wing used with? Like, what plane would you like to see using that stuff to see if it changes how it flies, right?
Okay.
Kind of remove the tail and see what happens. There was like the Explorer, the Arrow was one, and a couple others. I don't have it open, so I can't really just go down the list real quick. It's not a huge deal. But ultimately, for a long while, it was the Explorer. And then it looks like a couple more people found the site and went, what? I want to see it on an Arrow. I want to see you build an Arrow that uses this stuff, and we can get rid of those stupid winglets and maybe some of that waggle.
Now, the Arrow is just that's just a wing, right? A flying wing?
It's just a flying wing. It's like if you are from the old school, the Zaggy wings, which are basically, it's like a 20-degree sweep, and it has like an engine cutout. So the engine is pushed as close to the center of mass as is reasonable, and create like a wing that has some structure. And then it's got a cutout for the propeller so that it's not chopping up your plane. And then it's open all the way from that back, as opposed to creating a slot. You could probably build it with a slot, but the slots tend to be really, really loud. And this tends to be a little bit less, and it's a little bit more efficient that way. Anyway,
I'm trying to think how you would get. I mean, I guess you just curl the Arrow wings, but that's not unlike just a stunted version of a Prandtl wing, right?
So what I did is I actually took the Prandtl planker wing, I scaled it down so it would be the width of 120, the width of a phone board instead of the length.
Okay.
And then I swept it back by 20 degrees. So I kind of cut the inside parts in at an angle, and then the wingtips I kind of brought in at that same angle. So it's a parallelogram instead of a box, basically.
Right.
And then I cut out that notch where the motor goes, much like the arrow, so that the motor is a lot closer to the center of gravity. And then that way I don't need as big a battery sticking out the front. Like right now, the planker, you need a little fuse or something to kind of hold the batteries, because right now they all stick out from the nose. You know, like
Right.
they're sitting, the center of mass is like at the tip of the nose. So you got half a battery hanging out the front, which not really the best, situation. So, so short of creating a pod for that one, I'm like, well, what if I sweep the thing back? It'll bring all the CG back, and then that nose that's naturally there in the wing will put the battery weight far enough forward. It'll just naturally balance on the the plane itself.
Right.
And really the big difference is, instead of having the whole back section of the wing to be the elevators, where they turn and they roll and loop.
Elevons.
Elevons, thank you, that's the term. Yeah.
Sorry, I remember calling them like ailerators or something way back in episode 4. So
we knew what you're talking about. I hope everybody remembers that. I don't know what. Anyway, but yeah, thank you for coming up with the term. So instead of doing that and using the whole back half of the wing, because the thrust that gets generated is only in the outer section of the wing, you basically have the outer quarter of the wing has the control surfaces. So they're a little bit deeper, but they're not as wide.
Okay.
And then basically I'm going to use that. And I haven't seen if it functions. It should function the same as the plank version. But I haven't, because I haven't tested it, I don't know for sure. I'd like to confirm that. And then basically I'll shout it to the world and post it on a bunch of different places. But right now it's just in the build log. I do have the plans available. Anybody wanting to build a beta version of it, where you may have to find the CG and you may find that it doesn't fly as well as I hoped it would. But I mean, the goal is to kind of test these things and see. So anyway, so I got that built and I did test it, but I assumed the CG was a little bit further forward, I think, than it is, because when I released it, it just kind of nosed down, and no matter how much elevator I put into it, it just wouldn't come up. Like, it tried, but it wouldn't quite come up. So it's very nose heavy.
Okay.
So then I'm like, okay. And my stubborn me wasn't figuring that out fast enough. So I didn't get a shot while I was at the field. And I'm basically, okay. The camera got, one of the wires got cut as it was zoomed past. It bounced off the ground and zoomed past the whirling propeller. So, it's actually a pretty clean cut. So it looks like I should be able to solder that in a moment and get my FPV camera back. But otherwise there was no real damage. So, I ended up changing out batteries and kind of moving things around. And I did a toss test the other day, and it seemed to fly pretty reasonably well. So I think, like, it wasn't like this crazy long glide or anything, but it did glide for a while, before I think it lost enough speed and it just kind of sunk down to the ground. Based on that, I should be able to give it some power and get it into the air and fly it around and test it. So, so it's been there and ready for at least a day since Scouts. So it's Monday. That was yesterday. Man, that's a long day. Anyway, yeah, but Sunday. So it's been I've had it ready for about a day. So I think I might have an opportunity to fly it tomorrow. I'm hoping. And then if I film it and all that stuff, I can get that build video out. Because I did a build video for the Prandtl Arrow too.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to, basically, as part of that, I want to, link the plans. I want to, kind of put it out there for anybody to be able to build and test it out. I think it's a pretty exciting thing I feel like it's one of the most exciting things to happen to the way things fly. As exciting as like 6th gen, where pilots no longer really need to think about flying. They just sort of point the plane and they're more worried about what they're doing, which is the fighting aspect of it, the dog fighting and stuff. Building planes that have no business flying, that kind of deal. That's pretty exciting too, So anyway, those are the big things that I did. At least, I mean, it doesn't seem like much. And I've been building the 13th Squadron P-61 during this last Friday at the build night with everybody. I was able to put together the nose cowls, and I got the tail cones all glued up and ready. And I was working on the main pod, and I got the front and I got the back, and there's a lot of pieces in the middle that they don't all sit on the same former, I think.
Right.
Because when I was trying to piece it together, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how this all goes. And the plans that I have rolled up somewhere have the kind of like I'll call it the key. So
I seem to remember at one point during that night hearing you say, wait, did I just put that on backwards?
Yeah, I think I might have. One of the things I'm like, I can't tell. Is it supposed to go that way or that way? Oh, I'm not sure. So really what I should have done is just paused for a minute, found that plan, and just pulled it out. Or just, pulled the PDF out and looked at that one section. That would have been really smart. Anyway, so that's pretty much what I've been up to between that and I've been doing a little bit of pilot training. Kind of got on that. And I did get out to fly all the way from, which it was not far at all. But I went to our local airport and went to the Fayetteville airport, regional airport. So that's from an uncontrolled airport to a towered airport. And I also went from there to the neighboring untowered airport at a different day. And so, just practicing landings and practicing the radio work and things like that. And like the first one, it had been a while. So it was kind of like kicking off all the rust. And the second time I was feeling pretty good about it. I think the biggest thing is I probably need to look to my left or my right as I'm landing so I can get a better handle on the attitude of the plane. Because when I pull up to flare, I feel like I've flared when in fact I'm just leveled out. So I end up making a lot of 3-point landings, which I think makes the instructor pretty nervous. Fair.
3-point as in one wheel, then another wheel, and then your nose wheel?
No, all three at once.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, understandably. It really should be the back two wheels, and then the front wheel kind of comes down when the plane loses lift. That's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, I feel like that would be like a feeling sensation thing. To just have a feel for.
Some of it is, but I think you kind of need to get that general frame of reference before you get to know that you're in the right attitude. And then I know what the right one feels like. When I'm flared right, I can feel it just gently coming down and I'm barely touching the ground and I can feel it slowly lose the lift and bring the nose down, like the nose wheel down and touch. So I can feel that. But if I'm not in that attitude, I make the right decisions coming around the pattern. If I'm too high or too low or too far out or too far in, like I can adjust and basically be lined up and ready to go and ready to land at the right speed, at the right attitude and all that kind of stuff. Except right as I come down and do that last 10 feet where you flare and do the thing, I've got whatever I've got in my head as this is right is
it's not right.
It's not right. It's a little off. And it's what I need to do next time is just do a quick check on my left or my right and just kind of go, oh, yeah, a little bit more. And he's like, no, just keep pulling back. I'm like, well, last time I did that, I started going up in the air. You don't want to do that either because then you lose airspeed and then you're much higher. You want to lose airspeed, but you don't want to do it at 20 feet. You want to do it at 2, So,
okay.
Anyway, so it's one of those things where I've still got to work out the feel for that, and I always find it very interesting. Like I'm taking off from a 2-lane road, effectively, like a half-mile long 2-lane road, and then so landing at almost any other airport that has something that's actually a pretty decent sized runway, I come back and I look and I'm like, it's just a line. There's a little tiny line. I gotta land on that.
It's so tiny.
I know it's so tiny. And I know I can land on it. I've done it tons of times, and that's part of why I chose that airport. So it's just always funny that impression. When you come back and you're like, oh man, I don't know, that's awful tiny. I hope I can hit that. But it's really good, honestly, for helping you keep lined up with the center line. So anyway, so there's that. Oh, and I put in, they gave me a solo test to take home and fill out, and just so that they know that I know what I'm supposed to know to when they feel comfortable, I'm ready to be soloed. So I turned that in, and I'm pretty sure I passed it according to. He's like, okay, good, we got that done. Good, nice.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks. So practicing for the FA written, and trying to get a better feel for the landing so that I flare properly, and then that's kind of where I'm at with that. But it's been pretty good. I've got about 3 or 4 days kind of set up and at the beginning of next month. So I'm hoping to be, kind of on the next leg of the journey. But we'll see. I don't need to push it. I just need to get there.
That's right.
That's it. Cool. All right. So I guess that brings us to our listener comments.
No, that brings us to me.
Oh man, I thought you already did.
No.
Okay. So what are you playing, Joe?
Nothing. Just not had time to get out. Trying to think.
Yeah, but you've been working on something.
For a few minutes. I'm trying to think. What was I doing 2 weekends ago?
You made some progress with the 7.
I did, but I was trying to think. But we were out of town for our we were out of town meeting with some friends. Right?
Oh, okay, right.
And then that was when we released. And then this past weekend, we had the build night on the Friday night. So I did get to get a little work done on the 7.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly I just built the cockpit section.
The canopy.
Canopy. Yeah.
Yeah. How was that?
A bear.
Yeah. So what did you find? So yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, the way the Hangar RC's cockpit, it's kind of set up like a Master Series thing, where they're kind of like little wedges that you sort of crunch together, and it creates that curved canopy front, and then you sort of butt glue those sections together, and if you hold it for long enough, it'll be good. But it's kind of tricky because there's not a whole lot of real estate to hold on to in those little wedges at the ends of them.
Yeah, so what ultimately ended up being one of my biggest problems was I crushed and curled the foam plenty. Mm-hmm. When I glued it together, I didn't curl it enough during the glue time. Okay, so the cockpit wanted to be wider, or the canopy wanted to be wider than the base I was going to end up gluing it on. Because at one point, I muttered, and you were like, "What happened?" And my canopy I was fighting the glue, because you kind of have to glue it all the way around this big block all at one time, and it just wasn't sitting right. And
yeah, I thought I mentioned something about painter's tape. Painter's tape can be your friend in that circumstance. I think your response was, what was it?
What was painter's tape? Yeah, something like that. So I don't know what you're talking about.
How do you feel about that recommendation now?
Yeah, I still don't know what painter's tape is.
Nice. Okay. Fair enough.
It probably would have helped, but I don't know. It was
what it does is it frees up your hand to be, I guess, holding it in while the pieces are stuck together. Mm-hmm. That's what I found it helps with when you're doing that kind of thing. You're curling a whole section.
It may have helped, but ultimately I didn't have a tight enough curl on the canopy in the first place. Mm-hmm. So whether it was my hand or the tape, something was going to be fighting to keep it compressed down anyway. So
that's fair enough.
It actually had some glue. The foam actually tore at one point. The glue didn't come loose. The foam actually gave out at one point due to the stress of me trying to have it compressed into the right shape, even though the hot glue wanted to be in a different shape. So
I'll tell you what, that is one of the difficulties. I'll call it, that's probably the only part of that build that's very Master Series style. You know what I mean? There's a couple parts that are closer, but like that one really, if you can tackle that, you can probably tackle almost every Master Series that's ever been out there, any kind of curled foam construction technique. That it's a tricky part. It really is.
Yeah, the canopy and the wingtips, which I still haven't gotten on that plane, are the two hardest parts.
Get your packers tape, packing tape. Get get the painter's tape for the winglets. You will regret it if you don't. I mean,
fair.
Just because they're so small and they're rarely going to really hold the shape that you need. Mm-hmm. You're going to be spreading it with your fingers to get the right shape while the glue is drying, but you can't have the edge come apart. You want that to be tight. And so it's really tough to pinch the outside edge and kind of spread open the inside piece where the spar would go.
Right.
At the same time. It's very difficult to do. So really having the painter's tape deal with the edge will give you the freedom to work the other half. So maybe you'll find something better though. And if you do, share it because, those are probably the two hardest parts about that build. What do you agree? I mean, do you feel like the rest of the plane was pretty straightforward?
Yeah, no, the rest of the plane's been a walk in the park, but those two, the wingtips and the canopy, have been interesting so far.
Yeah,
I think I'm not complaining. Just
no. Well, no, I mean, and we're just sharing our experiences, really. I mean, I could tell you that the P-61 is a lot of curling foam. It's a lot of butt joining different pieces of this and that. Painter's tape is the only way you're going to kind of get it done. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. But at the same point, it's pretty rewarding. When you get closer and closer to like coming up with the final shapes, you're like, oh, there it is. I see that Black Widow coming into being here. This is awesome. It's so, I tell you what, the one thing I liked about building the RV-7, as I'm building it, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of space in this cockpit area. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of space. Like I didn't have to like squeeze servos in. You know what I mean? Like there's room to put your servos. There's room for your battery. There's room for, honestly, and when you get further along, there's room to even make like a little tray to make a standard pod slide in, Like there's enough room, and there's, to put a receiver on the one side and it's nice like that. I'm just so used to the flight test ones where they're packing it all in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty much me. It was just like 2 hours on the 7.
Well, that's okay. And then you got some quality time with it, and then you got to see it continue to take shape.
Mm-hmm. And got to hang with you guys, so that was good.
Yeah, that was awesome. We'll get to that in about 1 second here, I think. Do we have any comments?
We did have one that I know of. Richard had put in our show comments section of the Discord. Just let us know that he really enjoyed listening to the episode with Pat and Mike from the Flight Test Community podcast. Yeah. And just reiterating, those guys were a blast to hang out with and chat with. Like, we had a ton of fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So thanks, Richard, for reaching out and let us know how we're doing. It's nice to hear a little bit of feedback, good or bad. And he gave us some suggestions if we ever end up trying to do kind of a live event, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see that. I'll have to look into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. Cool. I don't think I saw anything on Facebook or our emails or anything. So if you do have a comment or question, or you have a topic idea that is something you'd like to hear us talk about, or if you'd like us to just shut up, you can always put that in there.
Don't put that in there.
I mean, look, I would just like to hear, what are you guys thinking? How are you feeling? But yeah, reach out. You reach out at Matthew@aviationrcnoob.com or Joe@aviationrcnoob.com. Or you can go to the website and hit the contact us and fill out the form there, and that'll reach us as well. So, please let us know what you're thinking.
Moving along, we had a bit of hobby news recently. And you're a little more in the know on all this. You want to talk about it?
Okay, that was my news section intro.
Uh-huh.
I don't know about I was in the know. I let's just say that when the YouTube live stream for Flight Test podcast came up, I just happened to be in a spot where I could go, well, let's see what they're doing, you know. And this last one, they were talking to John Overstreet, their I'll call it their Master Series designer, and he was indicating that over the last month or two, they've been hinting at the ability to print using basically like a 3D CNC machine kind of deal, gantry system. But instead of having like a CNC machine, they have actually a print head.
I'd say it's more than hinting.
Okay. They've been promoting. How about that?
Yeah.
And then basically so that to show that they can basically print, waterproof ink on water resistant white Dollar Tree foam board, I think was what they were doing.
Okay.
And so basically they're printing the skins, much like if you're on the Flight Test forums, then one of their forum members, Rasterize, kind of brought up the idea of, you know, just pull off the old paper and put on this printed, you know, skin, this colored, finished looking, you know, graphic onto your wing or onto your plane. And now you've got something that instead of looking like a piece of white something flying around or one or two colors from maybe packing tape or something, or spray paint, do that, and you have a fully detailed, as much detail as you want to put into your graphic.
Right.
And you basically, you know, spray it on and all that stuff. And a lot of people have kind of taken this and done a couple things with it. Rasterize being one of the main ones as far as the Flight Test forums are concerned. And of course, we've had our guest, Sam Platt, who runs the Hangar RC. And his whole thing is he's like, you can just, you know, he enjoys that process a heck of a lot better than doing spray paint. So his company is focused on creating some really detailed, beautiful looking skins, things you're really proud of, especially when you come to the field. I've had somebody, I think I told it a couple weeks ago. It's like, oh my God, is that foam board? You know, like, yep, that's foam board. It's just a skin you kind of put on the foam and build it like any other plane. So it's a similar thing, except the difference is, I guess, they're printing it directly on the foam board. I think that the big news is, one, the process is, they're happy with it. I guess they're complete. And so they're basically building mighty mini sizes. So about Park Flyer 30-inch size planes is what it looks like, 30 to 40 inch. I think the standard are going to cost $34 for a standard kit. For right now, they have a T28 Trojan. And if you want one of these skins as printed on directly onto the laser cut kit, it's a $20 ad. So that would be $62, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So his price point is $62.
Yeah, because we were looking at the prices before we got going, and I was actually surprised when that price came out. I was expecting it to be a lot more.
Yeah, me too.
It's still more than I want to spend for it, considering it's a speed kit and that, you know, one crash and, you know, I've crumpled the nose and it's not going to look remotely as good as it did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's just me, you know.
Yeah.
But the price came in really a lot lower than I thought it was. Now, that said, that is the Mighty Minis. Yeah, that's not
it's like
our
sheets.
old fogies, our simple Cubs, our Spitfires. You know, we're about to see what those end up coming in at. But
right,
yeah, he's got a lot of designing to do before then.
Yeah, and so based on that pricing though, it strikes me as it'd be basically double the price. Whatever your standard kit is, double the price will get you a printed skin on it through that method. Now, I don't know if that's just like an introductory price. It sounds like this is the price they're looking to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was news. It's pretty exciting, as in it's a technology that is now, it's been available to the commercial world, but it looks like they're trying to bring it to this hobby, in this side of the hobby with the foam and the foam board. So, Yeah, I'm interested in seeing how it goes, how successful that part of it is. And honestly, I urge you to just go out and take a look at both, the Hangar RC and these printed skins and see what you think of it. I'd love to hear. Honestly, reach out, let us know. What do you think is the difference? Like, is there one you'd prefer, or do you even want to go for? Or would you be like, no, I'm not paying that much for it. It's not worth
Right.
it.
I mean, I'll have to see at some point, see somebody else who's done it and see what the reviews on it are and such. I can tell you, like, as far as skins go, like, and I'm not trying to, I am, but I'm not trying to promote one over the other. Having built the Vulture and working on the 7 now, the thickness of the paper that's being used for the skin and the process of gluing it to the foam just seems to make the plane sturdier.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still terrified I'm going to crash that 7 on its maiden flight. But, I don't know. I feel like it'll probably take it better than, just printed straight on the foam board. And I don't know. We'll have to see.
I haven't built a non-skinned one, I don't think, to see what its durability would be and compare it with the 7 I built. So if I do, I'll let you know what I think. All right. Well, I guess, is there any other news that we want to bring up or anything? I'm sure just look for Black Friday sales coming up, and because when you see this, it will be Black Friday weekend, so Cyber Monday, all that stuff.
That's true. No more news, I don't think, except we had the build party this past Friday night.
Oh yeah.
And it was good to see some guys I hadn't seen come out to the build party in a while, because Tench was there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he was a building fool that whole night. It was great. Yeah, he was doing some really cool stuff. He's working on the Sea Angel, but he's making it very much modeled after the Porco Rosso model, and it's turning out great.
And then Tony was there. Tony comes to a lot of them. Patrick Murphy came out and joined us for it. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. He was building some axes and some axe handles.
Dave Eardley.
Eardley? Yeah, Eardley.
Yeah. Hi,
Dave.
Our Flight Fest buddy came out and joined in. He wanted to see what that was all about. Did I miss anybody?
There's a lot of people we missed.
Yeah, because I was only there for a little bit.
Yeah, so we had a couple people kind of come in for a brief minute. There's a couple guys who are new to the forum.
Richard came, that's right.
Yeah, Richard came. Richard joined us. And there's a couple guys who were new, just like straight out new. We had, I think 2020 who like just joined the forums, and he came in, but I don't think he was able to figure out the mic situation. So he didn't stay for very long, unfortunately, had to go, which all I can say is if you do join up and you're having problems, you could text one of us directly and just kind of ask for some help, or you could also just, if it doesn't work out this week, the week that we're doing that, try again, try next time.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, just ask some questions about it and we'll see if we can help you. Because I really enjoy being able to share what we're doing in this hobby. It's not easy to really get together and hang out with too many people anyway. So it's nice to be able to do this here. Yeah, man. It was a good time. There's a lot of people building very interesting things, and we definitely had some conversations going on that were good.
Good. And it looks like you're trying to plan a build night or a sim night.
You know what? So over the holiday break, I have, after the kids go off to their mothers in my house, that's what happens in the holidays. I have pretty much that week and the week of and the week after off, more or less.
Oh, that's nice.
And I don't have any of the kids, so I'm free to spend a little bit more time on the hobby. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to it. So what I'm thinking about doing is we'll set up a standard sim night. I know for Cub Scouts, the 11th or so, we're doing a camp out. I know the weekend before that, the Boy Scouts are doing a camp out. So that means that the following weekends are pretty free. So I'm thinking, maybe not. Shoot, I just realized Friday night is the night I may be bringing them up. So, I wanted to do something in December. Maybe we'll do it Saturday night and Saturday day. So December 18th. Let's see. Saturday, December 18th from 8 to 11, we can do a build night, and then maybe a sim afternoon earlier that day. And just basically, if you got your sim on and you want to just get out and hang, we'll have the sim open and we'll just be flying around and just talk shop and things like that.
All right, sounds good. We may want to look into, because I don't know that we'll host the files, but I think because some guys were asking where they get the files and such, the flight test plans and such, just to make sure that everybody in the room would have the right files. I think I'll throw a channel into the Discord.
Right.
That's, nobody can post in there, and then I'll put the links to the locations that the flight test or the flight test plane models are, so they can be downloaded.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're wanting to come to the sim night, pop into Discord, and we'll have a channel set up beforehand that'll have the link to those models, so you can get them downloaded, and it'll be through Phoenix RC version 6.
Yep, Phoenix RC version 6. I think I is the subset in there, and then again, the other thing we ask everybody to do is go to the flight test forum page with the flight test models and download that set and install those. Mm-hmm. And that way, when people are grabbing their favorite flight test model to fly around with us, everybody can see it. Good.
All right, Matthew, I think you're covering the plane history this time.
I am. I'm going to cover the Northrop P-61 Black Widow.
Gee, I wonder why.
Well, I've been spending a little bit of time learning about the plane I build, which is what I like to do.
Yeah.
So as I learned about the P-61, I was like, okay, now I know why it's called the Black Widow. And that kind of thing. So, let me get into it. So basically, this plane was basically a long-range, all-weather, all-night interceptor for the Air Defense Command, which is basically the Air Force, until 1940. I think it's from 1940 to 1948. And then it continued on in service in the 5th Air Force until 1950, which is not a whole lot longer, but it basically turned into a reconnaissance craft.
Okay.
And continued doing some, and then it went into civilian service to do some other more science related stuff, because it had radar on board, so it could do some additional additional tests and things that other planes couldn't really help with, because they weren't equipped to have the space on board, you know what I mean?
Right.
All right. So let's see. At the same time, the British Purchasing Commission, which is basically the purchasing armed forces for Britain, as well as the U.S. The U.S. Air Force, they were declaring that they both had an urgent need for a high altitude, high speed aircraft to intercept Luftwaffe bombers that were attacking London at night during the war. And they said, this is what we need. So they said, we need an aircraft that can patrol continuously over the city throughout the night, requires at least 8 hours of loiter capacity. The aircraft would carry one heavy, like one of the early radar units, which are really heavy, and then it said it should have multiple turrets. And that's basically kind of all they did, is they put that out there. And so all the manufacturers of the day were kind of, these are the Northrop at the time was basically producing, we'll call it sub-assemblies. So they weren't producing any like full planes, but all the the normal manufacturers, the ones that were in full production at the time, were like producing the Mustang and the Spitfire, and they were producing like all of the planes that were being used in the war at the time. So their capacity was pretty full.
Right.
And so it turns out this little, I'll call it subsection of the air industry, decided, let's take a shot at the big boys. And
Yeah, why not?
Right. And so they said, well, we can do this. And so they looked at it and they said, this thing's going to need to be big. Like it's going to, that system's heavy. Plus they want how many turrets? Oh my gosh, this is going to be big. So they decided it should be a twin engine. And then they kind of debated whether or not they're going to have a twin boom or do a single boom and an empennage, a standard empennage kind of deal. And so with that, they kind of, I guess they kind of came up with, they decided on a twin boom and a long wingspan. So it's actually, it's a 50-foot length with a 66-foot wingspan. So it's almost kind of, I wouldn't say lopsided. I guess most planes are kind of those ratios, but
I was going to say, is that outside the ratio of normal aircraft?
I suppose not, because I'm thinking most planes are like 25 feet to like 35-foot wingspan.
Okay.
So I suppose that's not dramatically out of proportions or anything, but it looks it. I don't know. You kind of look at it and you're like, that looks kind of squat. I don't know. Kind of squat.
It might. I mean, it might be the twin tail booms.
It might be.
Because the Lightning kind of looks that way too.
Yeah, and when it really probably isn't, honestly. So okay, the interesting thing and the exciting part about this plane, what this plane did for pretty much the future of aviation, is they took this radar, which was beforehand only ground based. So what they would do is they'd have these massive radar arrays on the ground, doing their best to detect incoming aircraft, and then they would relay vector information to pilots who were out loitering, trying to defend, whatever they're defending, and try to get them over to the enemy at the time. And so what they did is they took this radar and they found a way to kind of scale it down almost like a 3-foot dish, or a 30-inch dish, and they just had on like a little rotating thing in the nose. And so the interesting thing about radar is the radar will reflect water and metal.
Reflect off of.
Well, it'll bounce back basically.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, ultimately, I guess it reflects in every direction, but it only gets received, the parts that come back, of course. Anyway, so this was the first plane that had a radar on board. And so it would be a scanning radio, transmitter and aircraft nose. It was called the production model, the SCR 720A. And it, like I said, it's that little dish and the rotating around in the front. It had a range of nearly 5 miles, and it could also function as an airborne beacon, a homing device, navigational aids, and it can be used in concert with any kind of interrogator, responder, IFF units. So it was able to kind of extend.
IFF being indicator of friend foes, your friendly foe tags.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And of course that dramatically improves how fighters respond to threats, right? It helps them see which ones are threats even further out, as well as helping triangulate and coordinate forces going out. So the radar operator would locate the targets on the scope, and then it would steer the units, basically what the units these Black Widows were part of, to track them and give them vectoring and steering real time. Whereas before they would have to call in, and get oral instructions and corrections and stuff like from a base unit. And of course, the thing with the base unit is that they're typically about tree level, so they get a lot of ground interference. So oftentimes that made it very difficult, especially if the planes were flying low, to be able to discern if it was in fact a threat or if it was some sort of thing showing up on the radar. Anyway, once the plane was within range, the pilot would use the smaller scope that was integrated. So the pilot had a small scope up front with him, and the radar. There's three crewmen. So there's a pilot, there was a gunner behind him, and they were in the front of the section of the plane. And in the tail section is the radar operator. And the radar operator would basically give oral instruction to the pilot to get him generally close. And then once he was close enough, he had a little scope on him, so he could just go ahead and continue flying directly to the target and close in. And so the neat thing about that is that, so this plane was also, let's talk about the armaments. It was armed with, where did I put that? It's right here somewhere. It was put with four 50 caliber turret guns, and we'll call two twin mounted 20 millimeter cannons that were on the belly of the plane, stacked parallel with each other, and on top of each other. So they're basically kind of four, one left and one right. And then there are two guns on the belly that were left and right, stacked on top of each other, and they were kind of parallel. I think they were slightly converging, but for the most part, it was pretty much straight. So when, the pilot pointed the plane, he could, just like we were talking last time with the Lightning, he could just point and shoot. And as if he could lead the target well enough, it would get the target, And now remember, these things were also designed to take out the bombers that were coming in to bomb London. So they had to get up into high altitudes. They had to stay up there, and they had to have cannons powerful enough to shoot them down. The neat thing about the turret was operated by the gunner or the radar, and it had a 360 degree sweep and a 90 degree up and down. So it was literally the entire top half of the plane was within threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would basically turn that around, and using the scope information that they had, they would line up the enemy. And so I think they would be trying to set up so they can fly underneath and just behind their enemy, where it's basically the blind spot of the plane, and take out their bomber.
I mean, yeah. Perfect spot to be.
Mm-hmm. Now, originally they also wanted to have a tail turret, and they realized that was just going to be too heavy and too much for that plane. And in the second or third iteration, they ended up removing that and just leaving the top turret, the ventral turret. With that, the ventral turret had a hard time, I guess, with some of the gyroscopes that were being used to kind of stabilize it and move it around. It was not as accurate as they kind of wanted it to be or needed it to be as effective. So unfortunately, while it looks like they had a huge threat range, it was like firing an inaccurate gun.
Was a lot of the recoil just carrying into the frame of the turret, or
no? It's more like we'll call it play within the turret.
Okay.
There was like slight inaccuracies with how the gyroscope translated the gunner's sighting and stuff like that. So the gunner would line up and the turret would move, but it would be slightly off. And when it fired, it wouldn't be as accurate. And it wouldn't be the same every time.
Usually, it wasn't predictable that they could then offset it.
Yeah. It's every time they went through, the gyro would be a little off in a different direction. So
that sucks.
It was basically like a tolerance within the gyroscope that was causing the problem. So it made it really hard for it to be a very effective weapon, but it was still definitely a big threat. And it's not like they didn't use it to effectiveness. So, Let's see the engines. Let's go over some of the specs. So like I said, it was 50 feet long. It was 66 foot wingspan. It was almost 15 feet high. It used basically, it's a Zaparka 46, which is almost like a Clark Y wing foil, but the trailing edge has kind of like a built-in flap mechanism.
Okay.
It's one of those ones you got to look up. There's a lot more going on there. I didn't have time to research, but it definitely looks like it's a pretty interesting thing there. It is a 23 was it 23,000-pound plane. And when it
When
was
empty.
when empty, and basically add another 7,000 pounds for its all up weight on average. And then the max takeoff weight was 36,000. So it had an additional 7,000 pound capacity, which was oftentimes eaten up by fuel because it had to be up there for 8 hours.
Yeah.
I'm like, 8 hours, man, that's a long time to just hang out. But then again, I mean, if you're protecting your country all night long, that's the way to do it.
It is. It has a lot of fuel, but once you go into just a cruising speed,
Yeah.
Your consumption drops off.
Mm-hmm. And this one also had so much carrying capacity that it could hold up to 4 165-gallon drop tanks. So that was calculation 650 gallons additional. So that basically doubled the capacity of fuel, which is pretty impressive. And then, of course, last but not least is the engines. These were Pratt & Whitney R2865W double wasps. They're 18-cylinder air-cooled radial pistons, and they produced 2,250 horsepower each. Yeah.
Oh, that whistle failed. My bad.
Boy, oh boy.
Apparently I started sucking at whistling at some point.
Sorry. Well, it would travel 366 miles an hour, which you think is pretty fast. But if it's trying to catch up to fighters, right? What are the fighters of those days flying at? Do you remember some of our earlier fighters?
I do not. But
they're like 400.
They're not much. Oh, okay. I was about to say they're not much slower than that. But.
They're not. Like, they're in between like 340 to like 400, depending on altitude and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. So these would basically, if they could sneak up on their enemy, they'd get them. If they could line it up right and get a good shot. But if the fighters needed to and they managed to get far enough away, they'd just outrun them.
Yeah.
So, which, I guess that's one of the difficulties of that plane. But generally speaking, and of course, as the war went on, these become less and less effective. And so the truth is, with those kind of specs, by the time they made it to the European theater, they were pretty much out of spec. The planes that were out there were already kind of beating it a little bit. So the thing it had an advantage was its stealthiness, or its ability to see where other planes typically can't.
Right.
It had a 1,300-mile range, and it could go with the external fuel tanks. It could go 1,900 miles. It could go up to 33,000 feet, which in those days was about as high as most any plane ever got. Mm-hmm. And it took basically 12 minutes to get up to cruising altitude of 20,000 feet. So it's pretty neat. It's a cool looking aircraft in my mind. It's like one of the coolest.
Yeah.
It's just a neat. Oh, and that's what the other thing. There's a couple things. They tested like the olive drab green plane. And then, and you'll notice that most of the planes are a glossy black. And what they did is they flew a bunch of tests overnight over Florida, over the anti-aircraft guns that were posed out there to defend America. And they asked them, which ones did you find? And they basically didn't find any of the glossy black ones, but they found a handful of the green ones.
Huh.
From the searchlights and that kind of stuff. So that glossy black made them harder to spot. So they're like, all right, glossy black it is.
You would have thought that that matte black would have been better than gloss.
I don't. I guess it's maybe the spotlight would only highlight a small part of the plane itself, which would only be a small pinprick, and at that distance, it'd be hard to see the reflection. Whereas a matte black would kind of highlight the whole plane. I know the gloss kind of makes the off angles darker.
Okay, I can see that.
And I bet you that's probably what's going on there. It's just a conjecture. I don't know. Maybe if you do know, you can let us know. Tell us how that worked. I'm trying to think what else. If there's anything else. Oh, they were using plexiglass for that little nose cone in the back. It's like one of the earlier applications of that. There's like a cone on the back that's all clear. So they were using plexiglass.
Okay, I'd have to look up a picture. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, take a look at it. The very tail section is just a pure glass like cone, like a kind of squashed cone. And ultimately, later when they were using it for reconnaissance, they would have the person who was in the radar operator section. Yeah, person who was in the radar operator section would use that to kind of take pictures and things like that. So, like I said, then it went into reconnaissance and surveillance, and then after that, they used the onboard radar to help NASA and other, and like NOAA or the predecessor of it, they had an Operation Thunderstorm, and then what they would do is they would use this plane because radar, as we know, is used to help determine where the presence of water is in the atmosphere, because water reflects radar waves as well. So What they would do is then they use that to actually start learning and predicting how thunderstorms and thunderheads behave, and how to fly in and around them, and where it's safe and where it's not, and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So they used it to do a lot of research with that, and that actually helped significantly from there. They were also used in the Pacific Theater, and they were not able to get into the D-Day invasion, but they were important in the Battle of the Bulge. And then the battle for Guadalajara was a big one in the Pacific Theater, and that was another instrumental piece towards that. But one of the things that plagued Northrop is that they were a small company at the time, and they didn't have a lot of spare parts. So these things, when they needed spare parts, they couldn't really get a hold of them. So they were not as like, oh, we'll just pull from the parts bin and let's get this back up. It's like, oh, what are we going to do with this now? Either had to invent parts or just sort of do without.
That one becomes grounded and you use it for parts.
Exactly. And so that means that you just don't have as many up. So they ended up basically producing about 700 of these. And unfortunately, basically when they got to each of those theaters, they're kind of a little bit behind the times. So they weren't maybe as effective, but they did have the last 2 kills in World War II.
Oh, okay.
They basically ran down the craft they were fighting, and the craft ran into the ground. Doing maneuvers, I guess, to avoid the Black Widow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't by their own guns, but I mean, it's still the last 2 kills, I guess.
Put it up on the board.
I know, right? Boop, we got him. And the gunner's like, but I didn't do it. Anyway, and then I think the other notable thing that they were used for is they used, in the reconnaissance section, they used it to map Korea. And we used that to help us with the Korean War.
Okay.
Which followed very shortly after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the Black Widow. And that was the other thing they used, which is what I'm going to do with my model, is get a bunch of red LEDs and light the cockpits, because I'm going to put the canopies as clear canopies. I'm going to light the cockpits with little red LEDs, and that's the other thing they were using, is they were using red lighting in the cockpits and inside the craft, so that way the pilots and the gunners wouldn't lose their night vision.
Which just kind of doubles up with the gloss black, that Black Widow. I got you.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I don't know. It's just like, oh, that's so good.
Hey, look, the Black Widows are what gave me arachnophobia in the first place, so I got you.
Nice. Well, so that's the Black Widow. That's it.
Well, good job.
Thanks. I'm hoping my model turns out as good as I envision in my head.
I think it will turn out as well as you want it to.
Very good. All right, so I guess we get on to the next piece, right? So we are now talking about our main topic,
which is the build season. So kind of had this last year, but also like COVID happened, so it became an extended build season.
it got weird.
But,
Let's not talk about COVID. I'm just kidding. No, honestly, it's true. COVID happened and we had a different kind of build season than we usually do. But it's still, but it's upon us again. We no longer see daylight before and after work. If you work a traditional 8-hour day, and by traditional I mean go in at 8 and come home at 5, kind of deal. Yeah, it'll be dark the whole time. Anytime it's free for you, you'll be in the dark. So what do you do when you can't go out and fly, and you don't have a night flyer, or you're not allowed to fly at night? You go build. You get ready for the next fly season.
You go build, you do equipment maintenance, you discharge your batteries to safe levels.
Oh, look at you.
Winterize your stuff. Yeah.
That's right. Nice.
I hadn't done it yet, but you should.
I've got to go through and figure out which batteries are just dead. There's a couple that have been abused, and they something isn't working, and there's at least one cell discharged to 0.
Oof.
Yeah. They either need to be repurposed or thrown out. Probably thrown out.
Probably for safety, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good idea. Now's a perfect time to go through your battery collection and make sure that everything is stored properly if you're not going to be using it, and discarded properly.
Mm-hmm.
You can see our battery episode. I believe we talked about batteries in one of our episodes. You can go back there and we talk about how we discharge safely. You can go to Lowe's and batteries and bulbs and bring it there and say, hey, I don't know what to do with these, and I don't want them in my house. And they say, don't worry about it. We got it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then they take a nail and hammer. No, I'm just kidding. They don't bust it open. I'm just kidding. No, they have ways to discharge it properly and safely. And at that point, they discard it for you. So
that does not involve a nail gun. Okay.
No, it doesn't involve. Oh, check this out. Yeah. If you choose to do that, it's at your own risk. I recommend you don't, unless you were in a sand pit somewhere away from anything combustible, including yourself. You are combustible if it's out enough.
Transmitter upgrades, transmitter mods.
Oh, yeah. You can go, it's all the new stuff. I want a touch screen.
That's right. Or I want to get chrome, whatever, plating
anodized
for
aluminum colors. I want mine to be orange. I want orange. I want purple.
It'd be a good time to swap that momentary switch from the left to the right, or
or replace the switch that broke when you dropped it by accident. Oops. Yeah, I got one of those going on in my old transmitter. That would be good to have.
But ultimately, it's time to build.
Yeah. Before you build, what should you do, you think? That's what I should do for sure. I know it's
buy more foam.
Yeah, get supplies. That's for sure. Like if you've got a bunch of planes on the list, order the supplies that are, I'll call them perishable. And by that I mean like servos. If you're not going to recover them from old planes you're not tossing out old planes, but you're going to build new, get all your servos. Get a bunch ready. Have them at the ready. Clean out your shop. That's what I gotta do. Get it clean enough where you can just build when it's time.
I gotta get mine cleaned out. I can't park either car in the garage right now.
I only have enough room to park my butt in my shop, and my dining room is in sore need of getting officially cleaned out and ready for any other use but building planes. Because right now it's just plane building time. So clear out your workshop. Go through the stuff that's in piles of stuff that you've just said, I don't know what to do with it. Figure out a place. Figure out a home. Make a home. Get it where it needs to be so you know what you have to build with. If you have old glue, get new glue and get rid of the old stuff so that you have good stuff to build with. Get your plans printed out.
That's a thing.
Yeah, or at least have them, in a PDF or however you end up doing your plans. If you build from kits, make sure you have your kits ready. order those if you haven't. So that kind of brings us then to kind of like our build lists, right? So before you get too far into the season, you got to know what you want to do. Joe, do you have any idea what you want to do?
Kind of. Like, I'm hoping I'm hoping that I will take the time to do some building over the winter. Largely, I just haven't done a whole lot of building this past year. But I've still got those 2 Spitfires that you had pre-cut for me from Flight Fest.
Nice.
Which I will end up having to hit you up again on how to figure out where the 50% are. Because I think you had said you had done something to kind of denote where those were.
Yeah. I'll show you. Yeah, I basically I cut into the ends of where the 50% marks are. Yeah, that way you can line them up with a ruler and then do the 50% cut.
Okay. So there's 2 Spitfires there that I do want to get both of them built. Just one can be the Hangar Queen, or they can both be flyers. But ultimately, if I do go to Flight Fest next year, I want to have combat planes.
Right. What plane do you want to have as your combat plane?
The Spitfire.
Okay, you want to have the Spitfires. Fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I showed it off good enough, huh?
And I always enjoyed flying it when I had one. So
yeah, it's a good
flyer. I will hopefully eventually finish that Depron wing.
Okay,
I've still kind of got it partially along. I do want to rebuild the Simple Soar because I've not had success with a glider yet, and I've still got the.
I want you to have success with it, man, because it's soaring. I didn't think I'd like it. I really didn't. I thought I would be bored, and it turns out there's a lot more fun going on than I thought. So I want to see what do you think of it? And the only way for you to see is to have one to try.
Yeah. Well, I've still got the Simple Soar wing out there. It's going to have to be re-glued in a couple places at this point because all the dihedral points have gone the other way.
Oh no! So, yeah, they've let a little bit, huh? Did you put tape on the tops of those, or did you just leave them untaped? Because that seems to be the difference between if they let or if they don't.
I don't recall.
That's okay.
I had that wing's just been sitting over there untouched for a while.
Okay.
And I guess if I can get the Simple Soar built, then I may revisit my own glider.
Do it.
And go for at least a 3-sheet and maybe go crazy and go for 4.
Oh man, that'd be awesome.
But I do want to try to get more of a, I guess a thinner airfoil than I did last time. Because last time the airfoil, what do you call it? Top to bottom of the wing.
Yeah. The cord thickness.
Okay. So that was pretty thick, which would have been fine, but also see about tapering it from the fuselage out to the endpoints.
Yep.
Maybe see about drawing it down. We'll see. And then I don't know. February comes around. I know you like to do Bilgewaary. I am not committing to anything.
Oh, come on. You're going to have fun. Now, look, Bilgewaary, if you haven't heard or it's been a while and you forgot about it, I think the name of the month February is the dumbest name I've ever heard. So I'm going to just keep with that tradition. And in February, there's exactly 4 weeks. So pick 4 planes, build those 4 planes and fly them in 4 weeks. Good luck. The clock starts at midnight on February, right after midnight on the 1st.
Well, then I might do the Nutball, the Delta, and pick 2 others of similar nature.
I would say we should try. Oh man, I forgot the name of the darn thing. I'll think of it in a second. But there's a plane. I think it's like the in the same time period, the Speedster, not the mini Speedster, but the full size Speedster. So it's like the Fogey, but like mid-wing.
Okay.
I think that'll be a lot of fun for both of us to build during that time.
And then there's one more project that might be, that's probably going to be sitting out there, but it ties into something that is also with you. So we'll get to that in a minute.
The mystery one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. All right. So let's talk about, I guess, then what I'm dealing with. I'd have to say that I've got a handful of, I'll call maintenance builds, where basically it's taking something that I thought was good or it's close to the end and just finishing them and flying them. So there's a bunch of those, like the Devil Dozen Bat. The Bandito is almost like I just need to fly it again, see if I can get it flying.
Mm-hmm.
The Mara, it's the Flying Mustache. I wanted to put a motor on the front of that. I never really did that. So it's a really cool looking glider. I want to see if I can fly it. I built a mini version of the Remington Brunelli 2, which is it's a flying camper. So it's basically an old bi-wing where they made a lifting body center section that was the fuselage. And it seriously looks just like one of those airdrop campers.
Yeah.
And it is really cool looking and really dorky looking. I built the small scale model, but it takes 8 sheets of foam to build the big size because it's, again, 4 pretty good sized wings, or two wings and 4 halves, each taking a sheet. So there's half of the stuff there. Anyway, I wanted to build a full size version because I just picked up a couple of the B-Pack motors. So I think it'll run pretty well on those. So it kind of breaks into that, right? The Prandtl D Arrow is one of those tested ideas that I wanted to try. The Marabou, both the foam and the balsa, which is basically, it looks like a Zeppelin with a Prandtl D wing that was not a Prandtl D or anything specifically, just the way it twists and the shape of the wing as it changes across the length.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's a Prandtl D wing. It's just the same principles. I want to build that. So I've designed a foam board version, and I've got the original balsa, and I've got the balsa for it. So I wanted to try that and see, it's an experiment. I have a pre-made kit, like an actual official commercial release plane, the Reptile Dragon 2. I bought it when I built the foam board version, and I never built it, so I should probably build that.
Yeah.
Like the car plane, I should finish that. I've got it here, and I should also finish that J1000 that I've got sitting in the background here. That's taken up the entire bed because it's a big one. And then there's another couple like the Mr. Mulligan's DGA 6 by Mayan, good buddy who joined us in some of the first build nights we ever had on our channel. He designed the DJ. I can't even say it because I want to say DJI, and it's not DJI. DGA, the DGA 6. It's basically like a tail dragger tractor. It looks like it's, I didn't look too hard, but it looks like it's like a 9-cylinder air cooled, plane, high wing. A lot of people are building it, and I was asked to join the build party, and I said, okay. And then Kilroy sent me the kit, for the P-61 Black Widow as well as that. So I'm going to build both. And like I said, I'll finish up the Black Widow here pretty shortly. So I'm actually really excited to get to both of those. And I usually do that pretty quick. And I think there's two more. I forgot. There's something I got to go back on, but I'll get to that in a second. Dick Dastardly plane. So I designed, I put out a little like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to make a bunch of like stupid, crazy looking planes that fly? Like we make them fly, but they look like they shouldn't, right? And if you look at the Dick Dastardly, Muttley, chasing the pigeon thing, whatever that cartoon was, those planes were like crooked fuselages and, this kind of messed up thing. I know somebody said that they built like the Airplane 2 from the cover of the movie Airplane 2, where it looks like it's a airplane fuselage in a knot. They actually build one that is a knot, and it flies great. So
really,
yeah. I think it's actually Terry Dunn or somebody. It wasn't him; it was one of his buddies. I remember them talking about it when they were they were on the show and said, "Didn't somebody build the thing?" Oh yeah, it's great. But yeah, so like to do that kind of thing and just see. So I've got plans drawn up. I just haven't had a chance to really kind of cut them out and see if it sticks,
Right.
And then I think the last but not least, and I'll call it last but not least, would be the not the Mara. Where was it? Oh, the Magician. I want to rebuild that plane and see if I can't get it to actually go straight.
Yeah. Because you lost that one in the beans and it's all tore up now, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's the big news that I forgot to mention last at the very beginning of the episode is that. So yeah, I lost in the beans and I put out a thing. I even flew the Hangar RC Texan FPV. Honestly, it was like the third flight. I'm like, oh my God, this flies so good. Like, let's put on FPV and fly. So I flew. I still couldn't find in the beans. Well, last week when I flew the Prandtl Arrow, did the first test of it when I went out there, I looked around. I'm like, they're halfway through cutting down the beans and harvesting. And I'm like, they cleared out the section with the Magician's in. Maybe they found the Magician, So I pulled up, and all of a sudden, there's this giant pile of foam and a couple pieces kind of pushing up against the fence in the breeze. And I'm like, that's my plane. I'm glad I came here early. I was sitting there all weekend and I never show up. No, but there's so I have a giant pile of foam that's all busted up in the back of my car. And it's like all sorts of sticks and the carbon fiber rods that I used are there. So I can recover the rods. I've got all the servos back. I've got the ESC, which had some of the coating on the wires is off. And the motor, there's a little bit of coating off of one of the wires on the motor, but the motor's fine. And the propeller is intact. And the battery's dead, like dead. 0 voltage.
Dead.
Yeah, dead. Which is fine.
Dead.
At least it's not on fire, right? Like, so I'll take it. Yeah, I would have felt awful if like the whole field burnt down. Like I would have, but I couldn't find the darn thing. I looked a lot. Anyway, so and it looks like there's a bunch of like claw marks in it. So I think the combine got into it a little while. Like, what the heck's all that white stuff? Okay. And then they stopped and went, "Oh, let me get this stuff out of here." So they kind of piled it up. Ah, man,
it's that foamy guy.
Yeah, that's me. I'm the troublemaker. Anyway, so they pulled that out and then they left that. So I was able to pick it up and I've got all the components back. So I think I'm going to spray each one of those with this waterproofing stuff for the automotive industry. And it basically restores anything that has rust. It'll remove the rust and it will waterproof the metal. So
that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, it's good for electronics. Where is it? I thought I had it right here. Anyway, I'll highlight it. No, I won't highlight it today. But it's like a lot of people will either use conformal coat or they use this stuff. And so basically, it'll kind of it should remove any rust that's been building on it. So it should help restore. And it's dielectric, so it's not like it'll allow anything to jump. It just basically cleans it up and gets it, back to original and stops moisture from wrecking it. So,
right,
yeah, which is good. So hopefully, I'll cross my fingers. I'm not gonna. If it looks a little sketchy, I will probably put it on a plane that I don't care about. But it's nice to have those back to see what condition it's in and to kind of assess like what might have happened. The wings were in such, it was just a complete shambles. So I have no idea actually what caused, like how damaged it was when it landed. But but I have it back and I can build another one and put those things in it and see what happens. So that was a pretty exciting. That was a very happy day. I was like, yes, I found it. Hubba. So yeah, it was nice to get it back. So the Magician has reappeared.
Ooh,
I know. Okay, and then so with that, I also have I'll have the 4 planes that I'll build in Buildrory. I'm thinking I'm going to do like you. I'm going to build a Spitfire. If I don't end up flying, I won't really care. I'll end up having the kids fly it if I have to. Yeah, the Speedster, the old Speedster. Because I'll tell you what, I built the mini Speedster, and that's a lot of fun. I built it a bi-wing, and it flew slow and fun, and it flew around for like 8 minutes, and I was doing touch and go, so that was great.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to like possibly building up the big one. You know, I don't know what other planes I'll build. I'll probably do something that I have no business tackling as part of a build-a-wary. I mean, straight out, like, just no, you shouldn't do that. And what was it like a couple of these planes that are like, you built that? Oh, the Taylor Aerocar. I built that as part of the, from scratch. Kind of look up 3View, tried to figure out, but designed the plans, built the plane, and maidened it in build-a-wary.
Was that February?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
Because I looked, I'm like, oh, I don't have a thread for that. Like, oh, I know why, because it's in the build-a-wary thread. So, and then we have our mystery balsa plane. So, Joe, do you want to talk a little bit about why we're putting on our list a mystery balsa plane?
Yeah, I can talk about it briefly. So, a mutual buddy, I guess, decided that they had too many engines laying around, and felt that you and I both needed to experience that side of the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already sent you, two?
Yeah, they sent me a gasser, 30cc gasser, and a nitro engine, which is more like a park flyer size nitro. And I've been looking at that going, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that exactly, but I'm excited to. I feel like I've been trying to work my way through my foam projects, but every time I do, I see more foam projects to do. But
and
yeah.
then there's one more that's going to be in the mail soon, probably heading my way. And so I'd see what that is when it gets here, but that's something else we gotta, look into working on over this, build season, is actually building balsa planes, because, somebody's gifting us the motors. We need to.
Yeah, let's go take advantage of that and actually get a chance, because I mean, that's like the cheapest way to experience that part of the hobby, especially something that big. I mean, if it's 30cc, you're looking at like 5th scale, or depending on the plane, if it's a biplane, or even a little bit smaller, maybe 6th scale or something. But still, that's a pretty decent sized plane.
Yeah.
It means it's going to have a lot of fun behind it. You're going to get it up in the air, and it'll be up. It's being a gasser. It'll probably be up there for a good 20 minutes. So, and bigger planes fly better. So I'm really excited that we get an opportunity like this to try it. So
you can be on the lookout for us to, be talking a little more about that as time moves forward. We got to figure out where we're going to source some balsa from.
I know my hobby shop has some. If you need, if you have a list, you could certainly yell out to me and see if I can find some at my local shop. I can certainly bring that over.
I've still got a small hand size pile of balsa that the fellow locally gave me way back in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if you need like a certain amount of ply, like a certain width ply,
that's not going to be enough for a plane.
Just let me know. Let me know what you need, and I might be able to pick it up before I head down your way.
Okay.
Or if you come up, it's a weekend that we can go out there. We can go down and do that. But if you're a listener and you have a bunch of like suggestions about what we should do balsa wise, I'm all ears. I don't know about you, Joe, but I don't know a whole lot. So,
send them to Matt. I'm pretty much going to stick to a tried and true trainer for that first build.
Okay.
I would love to go for like a Spitfire, but I need something that I know I'm not going to crash first flight.
Yeah, I suppose. See, my thought is that it's more like the kit should be, or the instructions should be good enough where it can be built by a beginner, but it doesn't mean that it's going to like fly terrible either. You know, the
Right.
goal would be, even though it's like a Spitfire, you know, that I thought Spitfire, I'll never be able to fly it. That's going to be crazy. And here it is. It's like my favorite, best plane to fly. It's, you know, and it might be the same with the Balsa too. So,
Yeah, but I've crashed the old fogey, so
yeah, that's because you're having fun with it.
just saying. If you can crash an old fogey,
Yeah, of course you
I
can.
don't want.
Look,
I
if
don't
you're
wanna
trying to
risk
do
it.
inverted with that thing, you're going to crash it.
I have not tried to do inverted.
Yeah, but have you tried to do a roll
A roll, no. Have
with
I
a
done
with a
a
3-channel
loop?
Yeah, of course.
I've done a loop, yes. A roll, no.
Okay. Well, you next time don't go out on the really windy day. Okay.
That's generally my problem.
I know. I know. That's what I said. All right. Well, I mean, that's so I think that pretty much covers like that's a lot of projects, right? It's certainly enough to keep us busy. That's
Mhm.
for sure. I know part of this project is like LEDs. I want to figure out LEDs. You know, I want to get
Yeah.
them in one of my planes that I'm putting together here. So, like, I've got little projects that are kind of tucked amongst these projects, right? Like
Mhm.
the P-61. Wouldn't it be amazing to either put like a thin film transistor LCD screen and put like a mock cockpit instrument panel that actually uses like a quadcopter board to do the barometer and gyro and all that kind of stuff. Like and
Right.
displays it. That'd be if I could get that, that would be awesome. Or if you made like a mini radar for the P-61, that would be extra crazy. I'm just saying. These are the kind of ideas that roll around my head, sadly.
I
I have no ability on how to figure that out, but boy, it would be
about to say,
awesome.
you've got way more hobby time than I got.
Well, when the kids go on their Christmas break, that gives me like 3 solid, uninterrupted, just I go build if I want. So
Put on that old movie Man of the House and
that's
have a good time.
Yeah, or put on Mr. Mom.
Hadn't seen that one.
Nice. All right, well, cool. So with that, I guess that brings us to our workbench, right? Do we have anything else you want to add? Any ideas that came up on the way?
No, and my workbench is pretty much the same state it is. I got 7 on it, and I'm going to be working on finishing it up.
Yep. I'm going to finish up the definitely finish up the P-61 because again, like I'm pretty close, so I'm excited to do that. I'm going to maiden the Prandtl D Arrow, and I'm probably going to start work on the Marabou. I'm probably going to put the plans on the balsa sheet and cut out the wing foils because I mean it's a really pretty straightforward plane in the sense that it's like a handful of airfoil sections and then just a couple sticks. Really.
Okay.
Except for not counting the Zeppelin pod, but it's pretty straightforward. Oh, and I wanted to maiden the Don Carnage plane because it's ready. I'll probably be painting that up and doing the maiden. So that way, when you get your Sea Duck ready, maybe we can have a dogfight, as it were. I mean, based on our last dogfight, it's more just us trying to find each other in the air.
Yeah, it's very much we need to practice formation flying before we worry about all that.
That'll be fun, though. Nice.
All right, well, you got anything else?
No, I think that sums it up. I mean, I'd love to say that there's more, but I think I'm learning to be a little bit more reasonable or cautious with my list now.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know. All right, no, and then that's it, I think.
All right, well, I think this one's going to end up being a bit of a shorter episode than normal, but that's all right. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in and listening. Hopefully, you've enjoyed listening as much as Matt and I have enjoyed hanging out and chatting. And hopefully this has given you some ideas on things to do to get ready for the winter season, go through, winterize your stuff, but also be considering what you want to be building over the winter. And we'll continue to be having the build parties through the winter months in preparation for getting out and flying. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us. You can email Matthew at aviationrcnoob.com. or me, Joe at aviationrcnoob.com, or you can reach us both at aviationrcnoob@gmail.com, or you can of course go by aviationrcnoob.com and fill out the contact us form. Feel free to swing by our Facebook page.
Say hi.
We've got a community tab there that you guys can post in and put pictures if you want, or swing by our Discord. We generally include a Discord link in the show notes. Feel free to come out and join us and hang with us. And Matt, last time, anything else?
No, that's it. All I can say is just get out there and get your build stuff ready. I want to see what you build next time we get on that the build night.
All right, sounds good. Well, guys, we will chat at you later.
Bye.
Bye.